It was good, YouTube. I'm finally back after 7 months from my series of studying the book of Leviticus, studying this beautiful book in the Torah and everything like that. I started 7 months ago, and I'm gonna finally continue, but I'm gonna summarize the passages instead of reading each verse. Today we're gonna be talking about Leviticus 16 and 17, and in Leviticus 16, it's basically the passage about the Day of Atonement. So what the main idea of the passage is the appointed time on the 10th day within the 7th month of the Hebrews to make atonement for their sins. So the basic idea is there are two goats. One goat is sacrificed. The fat is sacrificed and its blood is sprinkled on the altar. And the other goat is actually kept alive. And it's symbolic because the priest, what he does is he symbolically confesses all of the sins of Israel over the goats, and then they send the goat out into the wilderness. So the idea is you're having one goat be sacrificed and its blood poured over the altar, and the other goat, which represents the sins of Israel, is fled into the wilderness. So it's like the sins are rotting away as the goat rides away from the camp of Israel. And then the remainders of the animals that were sacrificed, which was the goat for the house of Israel, and then there's also a bull sacrifice for Aaron, because the way it works is it sort of Aaron, the high priest, sort of offers a bull for his own priestly family sin, and it sort of goes from that outward. So first it's Aaron and his family, and there's a bull offering that goes with that, which is sacrificed and sprinkled on the altar, the blood. And then after Aaron's family is for Israel as a whole, so it sort of goes from the priestly clan outward. So after that, then the remainder of the animals are burned outside of the camp, the goat and the bull that was used in the sacrifice, and then the goat that ran away is just ran away. So this whole process is showing the children of Israel their uncleanness and their sin, and it's sort of getting them prepared for, well, just the realization of how holy God is, how holy it is to be in such close contact with the holy God, so that various things that we've read about in the law that make them unclean aren't even necessarily immoral. For example, after a man sleeps with a woman, they're considered unclean, but we know that sex is a good thing because God made it, and in the right context, there's nothing wrong about it, right? But in the context of ancient Israel, even if you did this with your wife, you would still be ceremonially unclean, which shows us that, sir, the uncleanness a lot of times in the Torah isn't necessarily about right or wrong, but it's just God is so holy that to be in his presence, you would be unclean by things that even he created for humanity. So all the uncleanness and all the sin of Israel is sort of represented, and the Day of Atonement is like a big sort of reset button for the children of Israel, where one goat is sacrificed and the other goat, which represents the people's sins, is sent away into the wilderness. And then it's like the year begins anew. Leviticus 17 sort of gets into how the only place that God wants sacrifice to be done is, where he decides, which is what will ultimately be in Jerusalem. Before the temple was built, the Israelites had the tabernacle. And the tabernacle was actually sort of a mobile thing. They would sort of carry it around where they would go. So the idea is sacrifices had to be before the tent of meeting, before the tabernacle. You couldn't just be a vigilante doing sacrifices wherever you wanted. If you killed the animal outside of the tent of meeting, that's cool. But the sacrifice, the offering has to be at the tent of meeting. It has to be localized in one place. And the reason is actually very interesting. In verse 8 of Leviticus 17, or verse 7, God says, "So they shall no more sacrifice their sacrifices to goat demons, after whom they whore. This shall be a statute forever for them throughout the generations." And this comes right after God talks about how the fat is a pleasing aroma, offering the fat is a pleasing aroma to the Lord, which is another thing we talked about when we first started studying Leviticus, is how offering the fat is a pleasing aroma to the Lord, is a beautiful thing to the Most High, because that represents how God wants the best part. You give God the best. So like when you eat something, people say the fat is the best part, is a similar concept, that when you're offering animals in a sacrificial priestly way, you would offer the fat, and then the rest of the skins and the dungs you would burn of the animal outside the camp. But what you offer to God is the fat. And God is saying there's a centralized, localized place that you have to do it. You can't offer me the best in any place in Israel. It has to be where the tent of meeting is. And the reason is because I don't want you to worship goat demons no more. That's dope verse, because we could get really deep and really esoteric, but the reason God gives us and gives the Hebrews a specific plan about where to sacrifice is because apparently they were offering to goat demons, and God saying no more. And this would eventually lead to, how the only Jerusalem temple becomes valid a little bit later on. But before we have the temple, we have the tabernacle. Basically, wherever God's presence is, wherever God designs to manifest his presence to the Hebrews, that is where we offer sacrifices. Not willy-nilly, because when you offer them in any other place, apparently the Israelites would offer to goat demons, diablos. Diablos, el Dio de los Hebreos, big no-no. Now, I wanted to pause on that part because I think that's actually very interesting, is that this seems to play a very big role into the spiritual world of the Old Testament, cosmology, so to speak. Because the idea is Israel is Yahweh's territory. Israel is Jehovah's territory in the Old Testament. So the idea is any place that's not Israel is sort of seen as being owned or operated by other gods or other demons, so to speak. We can see this in Deuteronomy 32, verse 8. When the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he divided mankind, he fixed the borders of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. But the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob his allotted heritage. So this verse from the Torah also teaches that the different people groups are proportioned according to the number of the sons of God, the spiritual beings. We would think of them as kind of angels, even though angel is more like a job description. But the idea of spiritual entities corresponding to the people over the nations. Then you have the book of Daniel with the prince of Persia and the prince of Greece that were fighting against the archangel Michael. And then Deuteronomy 4:19 talks about how the other nations worship what has been allotted to them, but Israel is forbidden to do so. The idea is other nations worship these other gods, and other nations have gods that correspond to their territories, false gods ultimately. Israel has the revelation of the Most High, and they're accountable to that. So all these territories outside of Israel are seen as sort of being run by these false gods. So it makes sense that why Israel, if they're not worshiping where God makes his presence known, fall into this kind of idolatry and worshiping goat demons, because in the Old Testament, any land that doesn't belong to Jehovah is sort of seen as belonging to demons or devils. So it makes sense on why God had to say, okay, you have to make a play. You can't just offer sacrifices anywhere, or else you're going to offer to demons and goat demons. I'm going to tell you where to offer sacrifices, which is the tent of meeting. So basically in Leviticus 16 is the Day of Atonement. There are two goats. One is sacrificed. The other one is sent into the wilderness, into the pagan territory, away from Jehovah's territory, to represent the sins of Israel going out from Israel. And Leviticus 17 is about how God chooses where the offerings are going to be made so they don't worship demons anymore, because they were worshiping demons in the wilderness. And the last part of Leviticus 17 is actually about how the life is in the blood, so God is forbidding the Israelites to actually consume blood, because because life is in the blood. It's that power that makes atonement when blood is sprinkled on the altar for the sins of Israel in these rituals. So God is saying, I don't want you to play fast and loose with blood. Don't be consuming blood. And that's basically Leviticus 16 and 17 in a nutshell. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I pray to be led by the Spirit so that we could all come to an understanding. Y'all be blessed by the Most High, and I see you in the next video, all right? Peace.